I've now shown you the mechanics, and now we're going to get to what the exercise is. I'm actually going to go through the entire exercise because I want you to see me do it.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me in this Evolve student vlog, a place where I rant and talk about my art journey, specifically with the Evolve online art program. I really appreciate you lending an ear while you are or go about your day. We are now on episode 4. You can check out my other videos if you would like, but I finally finished block 1, which felt crazy fast, even with the little mini break in between. And I was very happy with how this last painting of the pumpkin came out. And the feedback on this painting was very helpful. They pointed out things that were wrong within my individual gradients in the pumpkin itself that I didn't catch, as well as with the fabric, which I really appreciate that feedback because that is what I'm expecting from the program. And when you look at the photo reference of the pumpkin, it's very, very intimidating at first, and it almost feels like you're not sure if you can do it because the steps that they give you to go through the paintings might seem like, is this enough? And crazily enough, is enough to finish a realistic painting like this. And again, I took what I learned in this first block, now that I had completed it, and meshed it with what I already understood about portraiture. And it's really insane, and I don't want to sound repetitive when I say this, but a little bit of guidance can really make such a big difference. And I say this because I've learned some basics on my own by looking up college curriculums, researching topics, looking up lectures, and finding helpful videos all across the web. And until this point, I've never bought a program. Be aware, though, that this isn't a miracle program. If you're a complete beginner, you will have beginner results. Not everyone is going to make fantastic paintings to start, and that's okay. But with dedication, you can definitely get there. And in my case, the guidance that's offered through not only the videos, but also the instructors are beginning to connect a lot of dots that, in a sense, were kind of already there, and things are beginning to click. And that's really exciting. You would think that it's so exciting that I would immediately jump into block 2, which was the goal, but it didn't quite happen that way. So what did I learn, and what was reinforced from my own research during block 1? Well, when I tried to list it off the top of my head, it really didn't feel like much, as in like the list wasn't very long. But when I sat down and really thought about it, there are little things that I learned that I didn't know that I needed to know. Not to mention, some of these may be really small things, but the difference that they made to my paintings is what's really important. So let's go over some of them. And disclaimer, these may be things that an experienced oil painter might already know and think I'm a fool for not knowing to begin with. Whatever, this is about truly understanding what I've learned, no matter how small, and how it's affected my painting process overall. Firstly, I learned how to control mixing my oil paint. Sounds childish, I know, but before I would mix my paint like a madwoman and it would spread everywhere. And call me crazy, but I never realized how controlling the area you mix your color in could help you organize your palette space. Also, how to efficiently use your palette knife to mix your paint without wasting paint, basically, which were both completely new information to me. I had never, really thought about that before. And when I went to the physical school in New Jersey, Kevin stressed that it's important to keep your paint in a designated space while you're mixing so that it sets up a good habit for when you need to have a variety of colors laid out on your palette. Along with learning to control the space I mix in, my knowledge to what density or the feeling of what oil paint should feel like when it's properly mixed with oil, at least for realism paintings, was validated. I'm sure later on in the program there will be different thicknesses and more or less use of the oil, or the linseed oil. I also now have a solid understanding of value and the importance of the relationships that they have to each other, along with how they play with the light to create a finished painting. Not only that though, but I learned how to find the base light and shadow value of subjects. This isn't something that is physically taught in the program. There's no shortcut to picking the right base value. It's just something that you have to pick up over time and practice in each painting. And to be frank, just because I have a solid understanding of value does not mean I'm going to 100% be spot on every time I paint. It's one thing to know what you're doing and have a full understanding, but then you have to keep on practicing so your error margin gets smaller over time. It's like your skills have to play catch up with what your brain is processing, or what your brain can process. And with finding the base values of subjects comes then identifying the highlights and reflections to make a painting come to life. The technique that is taught in the program was completely new to me, and it makes so much sense versus what I was doing before, which was kind of just adding color and figuring things out along the way. And doing all of that while still being restricted to a limited palette. Oh, let's also not forget how to not use a glass scraper. That was a big lesson learned from me. And I definitely see improvement in identifying shapes and the shapes of gradients. It's still a little bit tricky for me, but I'm in a much better place now than when I started. So once I received my feedback, I was ready to move on to block 2. So I watched the videos, soaked it all in, and then found every excuse to not start block 2. It started with excuses that would make sense, like I have to build a still life box, but I don't have anything to build it with, so I'm just going to shop online for one. But everything was too expensive. And then I had to order a lamp, and not just any lamp, the perfect lamp to mimic daylight. I did end up getting an OttLight, which has been working awesome for me. But not only did I have to buy a light for when I paint at night, I also have to buy a lamp for the still box itself. And once those items got here, once I built the still life box, I didn't have any more excuses, and yet I still didn't start it. And at that time, I didn't even bother to question why I wasn't starting. I kind of just let life be. But once I really took a moment to think about why I haven't started, there's something so intimidating about painting from observation for me. I think it's because I tried it once and I absolutely failed. I'm super comfortable painting from a photo reference, either printed out or on a screen. But painting from life, that choked me up big time. And I didn't want to admit it as being fear, but I felt like I did so well with block 1 that maybe block 2 was just going to be my downfall, and that every painting is going to suck because I keep comparing it to my first failed attempt last year. But see, the thing is that when I failed last year, I didn't do almost any research. I bought a proportional divider. I looked up a few videos of measuring from life, but I didn't properly dive into the subject because I thought I could just wing it, which was really ballsy of me, I must admit. And since I've never done it before, my eye was nowhere near prepared for what was coming. And sadly, I let my failure discourage me from trying it again. And I think deep down inside, that's what was making me procrastinate so much from starting block 2. I just felt like now that I have the tools, if I fail this time, then I kind of just suck. Sorry for the sirens in the background. I really have to try to remember this time around that I have a proper instructional video. So this is already a good start. I shouldn't be looking at it in a bad way. I have a solid understanding of value, which is one less thing to worry about for this next block. So I can really just focus on measuring from life. And if my first painting doesn't come out good, there's always the next exercise. I really have to try to keep a positive mindset. I think as artists, we tend to be our own worst enemy and always talk ourselves out of becoming better because we don't want to fail. Not to mention the ever-growing artist gap that we have to deal with every time we open social media. And if you haven't heard of the skills gap, it's basically comparing our current skill level to what our brain likes and wants to create, but we lack the time and experience. It's a heck of a psychological battle because you start feeling like you'll never be as good as other artists, and we can't stop comparing ourselves to them. And it can be a hard thing to overcome, but I guess in a way, once you're aware of what you're experiencing, it could be a little easier for you to get yourself out of the rut and keep going. And if you're having trouble telling yourself that, I'm here to tell you that you absolutely can do it. There is no talent. There's just dedication and finding the joy in learning. Okay, maybe in a little bit of talent. But don't beat yourself up over a less than perfect painting or drawing or practice session. You'll get better with each one, even if you don't see it right away. After all, you should be enjoying your overall process of creating. Sure, we stress out a little bit here and there, but it shouldn't make us want to rip our hair out. Anyways, once I got over that hump, block 2 was a breath of fresh air. But thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I do hope to see you next time. Bye.